sick of being the only person who has experienced bullying in the workplace and not had a platform or a place where, you know, this can be talked about and your feelings can be validated. Like if we're all experiencing the same thing, it's a good thing that I'm sitting down with all of you so that we can normalize the challenges that we go through, and we can hopefully have a narrative or a conversation about what type of leaders we would like to be, or the types of leaders that we would like to see in leadership positions in the future. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the All of You podcast, the podcast where we sit down with all of you and we extend the olive branch wherever and whenever we can to talk about personal and professional development. I am an elder millennial, as many of you have been following along, or if this is your first time stumbling across this podcast, welcome. I have been doing this for not too long. I've been doing a lot of reflection actually since 2025. 2024 was the year of learning and experimentation for me in terms of tapping into this creative itch that I've always had. I was a drama nerd in high school, and you know, when I went into my undergrad and university, I wanted to be an English and creative writing major. I don't know, I was thinking about journalism. Who knows? Anyway, writing has always been something that I've been really fascinated by. And long, long ago, when dinosaurs still roamed the earth, I did have a blog and I would record audio clips and attach them to my blog, which, you know, this is eons ago. I think the word podcast had been uttered in the media, but it wasn't as, you know, mainstream as it is today. And I have personally really loved the evolution of the podcast. And in the beginning, I don't necessarily know that we knew exactly the direction that it was going to go. I knew that I wanted to, as a millennial, sit down with people from other generations and understand their trials and tribulations of working, like what it's like to work in the workforce, but not just in the field that I know, which is healthcare. And it just so happens that a lot of the guests we had on last season were from a healthcare field because that's who falls within my network. And I'd like to continue with a focus on, you know, the business of caring for people and working with people. But I also have a really fascinating sort of, I'm very fascinated by the idea of understanding other professions. And if all of us are experiencing the same issues with leadership and corporate jargon and blah, blah, like if we're all experiencing the same thing, it's a good thing that I'm sitting down with all of you so that we can normalize the challenges that we go through, and we can hopefully have a narrative or a conversation about what type of leaders we would like to be, or the types of leaders that we would like to see in leadership positions in the future. And this doesn't have to be stuffy, right? Like, I like the idea of breaking down barriers in communication. Some people, because they refer to me as professor, sometimes I think that there can be a little bit of a relationship dynamic, and not from my end. I certainly don't try to imply that or impose that, but sometimes I think people who are younger than me, they do actually maybe see me as an authority figure, which is a weird imposter thing that I have that I don't exactly have the ability to wrap my head around. But anyway, So yeah, being able to sit down with young people. I have a 25-year career rap sheet. This year's 25 years for me since the very first volunteer gig that I ever had. And there's so much to be said about what I've learned and how much I've grown over 25 years. Like there's endless stories that I could be sharing. But I'm going to leave that for the seasons, and I'm going to leave those conversations to happen organically and, with people. This isn't easy to do, by the way, like sitting in front of 4 cameras, 2 bright, shining friggin' lights shining in my face. And for the first time, I've actually made myself notes, and I haven't even looked at them once. I have to make sure that I'm not like going way off on a tangent here. But anyway, season 2 of the All of You podcast. And thank you. Thank you if you have been tuning in since the beginning. Wow. Thank you for being here. Now's probably a good time for me to remind you to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We hit 100 subscribers on YouTube. That's not an easy thing to do, by the way. Getting subscribers on YouTube is hard. Getting subscribers on any app is hard, but YouTube, we have been going strong since September, and we're doing a combination of short reels and shorter form clips. I guess on YouTube they're called shorts. We're on TikTok, baby. Wow, that's crazy. I've always been a little bit resistant to hopping on over into that neck of the woods, but a couple of our TikTokers, whatever they're called, a couple of our TikToks, they've actually done okay, like a couple thousand views. So I'm really happy with our micro organism of a podcast that we have been building, and I'm just excited to be saying season 2, and I'm really excited to have a little bit more of a tailored, a little bit more curated sequence and flow to the episodes. Because I didn't ever write anything down, I would often forget things. And another thing that I've come to realize is interviewing people is not as easy as it looks on the red carpet. When oftentimes I'm sitting down and interviewing a person, I am having a full dialogue and narrative in my head, and they're responding, and I'm supposed to respond back to them with some kind of meaningful response, but I'm thinking about something completely different in my head. And then, oh my gosh, it's the worst. Anyway, these are just some personal growth and development things that I have become aware of since watching back the episodes, seeing the reels and the shorts. Another fun thing that I'm really proud of is a couple of weeks ago, I was actually fortunate enough to pitch the podcast to a podcast network in Toronto. And, it was a bar downtown Toronto that they had turned into an event space. It was like a networking thing, and only a couple of people that submitted applications to pitch were approved. Thank goodness. I don't know. I feel very lucky that the All of You podcast was selected to be a pitch for the evening, and it was nothing but good vibes. There was a room, I don't know, I'm going to say maybe about 100 people, maybe 100, 120 people maybe. And yeah, I was just able to stand in front of this room of people who care about podcasts, and I was able to talk about this project that's become so near and dear to my heart. And it's a baby little micro podcast, but I am really looking forward to this year in trying to make the podcast platform grow. Everything that you see that's happening is all self-taught. What I have learned, what the podcast editor, Nick, shout out to Nick, he's self-taught. all of the technology, like sharing of files, understanding SEO and all of this stuff. There are so many things that go into a podcast, and I guess I'm just so proud of what is coming of this and what is coming down the line. So speaking of all of this is self-taught, I think it's also important for me to be very open and transparent and vulnerable with you to sort of explain how all of this has been funded. And you are looking at it. I do not have a money tree. I have an olive branch. I have an olive tree behind me on set that's almost dead. I'm trying very hard to revive it, but it doesn't grow money and it doesn't grow olives either. Now, if you've been following me at all on socials, you will perhaps know that my employment situation has become quite precarious. I don't know what the future has in store for me beyond April. Bottom line, I have been funding from my own pocket everything, the entire operation, everything, every piece of equipment. Oh my gosh, all of the subscriptions. I've been, supervising 3 Bachelor of Social Work practicum placements, free, unpaid, since end of August, beginning of September. I love them. They're incredible and they're so helpful and amazing. So I'm very grateful to have them. But I have to pay for email subscriptions and, geez Louise, like our drive, like the Google Drive where we keep all of our files, that's a subscription. We have subscriptions to all kinds of editing and just different types of software, booking software, calendar software. Anyway, we're talking thousands of dollars. And I don't for a second want to tell you that I regret it, because it's been very stressful, and there have certainly been times when I've thought to myself, what have I done? Like, what have I done? I've put my entire life savings into building this thing, and I'm really proud of this thing that I've built. But that I've built with the help of people. I'm certainly not going to take credit for it all on my own, but it's all come out of my savings account, and now there is no money left. So with the not-for-profit, I am finally to the point where I feel comfortable putting out a GoFundMe, which we will be doing this month. It's coming up on our 1-year anniversary as the not-for-profit. We're going to do a little promotional thing. We're also going to be announcing a summer internship program. So yeah, I'm really excited about what's to come, but the sad news is this can't keep going on my dime, unfortunately, anymore. And grant funding, surprise, I was very ignorant to this, but grant funding is very difficult to get. You need like 2 years of data to show impact, and I don't know, you need data, and you need reports, and you need facts, and you need figures, and you need all the things for all of you to keep watching this podcast. I need funding. So if anybody out there is still listening and you know a ding dang dong thing about raising money for a not-for-profit outside of crowdfunding, through things like a GoFundMe, I would love to do an in-person event this year. I really shit the bed last year with the September event that nobody showed up to, that I spent thousands of dollars on and had no return. It was like one of the hardest lessons I think I've ever experienced in my life. This has been very hard. Starting a business is very hard. Starting a not-for-profit is very hard. So anyway, certainly looking for opportunities for partnering with organizations, whatever, with sponsors. It would be incredible to be signed to a network. I want to continue to see OBM and the All of You podcast grow and flourish. But I also have to be very realistic and say, like, 90% of startups fail. So if, the friggin', what do you call it? GoFundMe isn't wildly successful, I'm going to set a target for $10,000. I think that's a reasonable amount, considering we have to pay podcast editors and subscriptions, and we have to renew our subscriptions coming up. We are looking to cut costs in many avenues, including a grant that we were approved for through the Google not-for-profit workspace support program. Anyway, so that's one thing I'm looking forward to. And yeah, I guess I'm just really looking forward to the future, and I'm trying to remain as positive and optimistic as I possibly can. Understanding and appreciating that, all things that happen, everything that happens is teaching us a lesson. Everything that's going to happen is already pre-planned in the stars. I just need to lean in, keep doing the thing that I love. And I firmly believe that good things are going to start happening. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my bones that I'm doing the right thing, that helping young people and like normalizing the experiences that we're having in the workforce, like, I don't know. I'm sick of feeling like I'm the only person out there who's ever hated my fucking boss. Like, I'm sick of being the only person who has experienced bullying in the workplace and not had a platform or a place where, this can be talked about and your feelings can be validated. And I really want the way that we lead in the future to be a more human approach. And I'm not talking human resources. Like, just as well as I do that human resources is not human resources. Like, human resources is organizational best interest department. No offense to my friends who work in human resources, but like, your textbooks suck. I'm sorry. But it's just how I feel. Anyways, so listen, I promised I was going to keep this short. I've already yapped along for long enough. But guys, I'm really excited about season 2. Sham will be back on the mic. We already have 3 episodes recorded. We'll have a fourth I'm going to record. And we're going to be dabbling in some different content too, which I'm really excited about. We're going to actually be doing some intergenerational recording with elderly people, which, if you remember my story about my career, I actually worked in long-term care for 10 years before I moved into acute care. So the elderly demographic and their wisdom and mentorship that they can share, I think, is something that we need to capture, because they're going to be dead soon. And we need to hear their stories and their wisdom. And I want to have those conversations in a very frank, transparent way. Anyway, yeah, I'm really excited about the future, and I hope you are too. And if you have an extra $2 or an extra $5 when the GoFundMe page is launched, listen, for the price of your Starbucks coffee for the day, you could help fund this operation and help put OBM and TOYP on the map, or keep it on the map, as teeny tiny of a little island that it is. Anyway, I'm just really excited to see where this goes, and it can't go anywhere without your support. So thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, share, talk about the All of You podcast with your friends. I don't know. If you're a teacher, share it with your classes. I am looking for guests all the time. Like, we like recording a month out. So if you're interested in being on a podcast, or you have a young person in your life that is having a hard time with their job search, I'd like to talk to those people. Anyway, I'm just so blessed. I feel so lucky to be sitting here and having this conversation with you. My last sort of comment is just around the impact that podcasting has. Like, I was listening to a podcast last week, and, if we saw any sort of indication of this through the US election, last year was the podcast election, and these platforms are gaining more and more traction. It seems like a lot of people are kind of getting on the podcast bandwagon, but need I remind you that your phone, which maybe most of you are listening to this from, has turned into the TV in our home environments. And even when we're watching the big screen, we're watching the little screen at the same time. And I think podcasts and the voice behind podcasts, and whether we like it or not, the influencer is taking over in terms of the influence that they have over pop culture and even voting decisions. Like, I heard some wild statistic, like all of the celebrities that Kamala Harris had under her riding that were like supporting her politically and singing and having concerts and telling jokes on stage, like all of their mass followers combined, like Usher, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, all of their followers combined was upwards of like 3 billion followers. But then if you look at the Joe Rogan and the Theo Vaughn, like the big podcasts on Apple and Spotify, if you look at the number of followers that they have in comparison, the statistic was like the Kamala Harris following wasn't able to turn over enough votes, but they had like 3 billion followers, and they weren't able to turn over enough of those 3 billion people to vote for Kamala or otherwise. But yet it was the podcast influence that really took the reins in the election. And I'm not saying one way or the other who was right or who was wrong, but I guess what I am saying is the celebrity influence, the Cameron Diaz's and the Brad Pitts of the world, they're not influencing us the same way. There's been a veil sort of taken off of the celebrity lifestyle now that we can literally be inside their lives through social media and what have you. But there's also this notion that perhaps celebrities are a little bit disconnected from the average citizen, and the more relatable person to listen to and the more relatable person that people are wanting to pay attention to is the person that's like them, because they're not like us. Right? Isn't that was just the thing? They're not like us. Anyway, Kendrick Lamar. I'm going on a rampage here. So, very important to consider the impact that podcasting has. Who are the voices that you want in your ears talking about important things that are happening in the world? I'm not saying that I'm anybody, but I am not afraid to talk about the things that I feel and the things that I'm observing and the trends that I'm noticing and how some of these things make me feel a little bit icky. And then when I'm able to sit down with other people who share a similar mindset and we're on the same page about things, it's so validating. And anyway, it just really confirms for me that I'm absolutely doing the right thing that I'm supposed to be doing. Thank you for listening. Please keep listening. And back to the whole like, share, subscribe, follow, talk about this with your friends. You know this crazy girl on the internet with purple hair who's just trying to get a message out there and who's trying to talk about the way the workforce is today with other young professionals. And that's not, I'm just here. I'm just trying to make the world a better place, one podcast episode at a time. And really funny thing, when we were at that podcast pitching event, one of the guys I was talking to, he said something like, podcasts are like tattoos. Once you start one, you gotta get another one. And I don't know, maybe I start my own podcast. And it's not about career, it's just about day in the life and shenanigans and me reacting to things and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. This is the All of You podcast, season 2, the podcast where we sit down with all of you. Until next time. Bye, guys.